see that basically the tunnel runs forever. Also, another suspicious thing is that these are not round tunnels done with a tunnel boring machine.
Oh, that's true.
How the hell were they built? With picks? With, what is it, rock picks? I mean,
Jackhammers.
with jackhammers. They didn't have the time from 42 on, even if they used 20 times as many slave labor or dynamite. A lady came to me after one of these meetings and said, you know, I remember reading some CIA files 20 years ago that the Germans were using sonic lasers that would, I don't know, probably pulverize the rock into sand just by directing a special sonic beam at the rock, which allowed them to zoom through these underground spaces, through the rocks. I mean, this is the most solid German rock. We are not talking about Mickey Mouse Italian dolomite here that that you can blow it in and it will disintegrate. This is rock hard Teutonic rock. It's very hard to drill. I think they were zooming through this hard rock basically with the speed they were managing to hold the sand out that was coming, or fine gravel, depend on how you fine-tune the sonic laser beam. There is assembly line for V1 in Nordhausen, and Nordhausen is a giant underground complex. There was no concentration camp without a giant industrial facility next to it, and no industrial facility without a concentration camp next to it. And no such combinations without an underground appendage in the last 3 years of the war. The Germans were even thinking of building underwater munition plants, underwater. By the time the war ended, here we see V1s on the underground assembly line. And it's quite a finished achievement because we see electricity, ventilation. This was probably a much bigger tunnel that was divided into two here by some brick construction in the middle. Another shot in a different room. Here we see that it's a very big gallery. It's probably 2 stories tall at least, because this is about 1 story, and it hardly goes to half of it. And then we see a giant air conditioning duct going here. I mean, guess the spaces that were air conditioned underground. And the lighting, you see how, I mean, this is not artificial lighting for the purpose of the photographs. Everything was installed and running. The conveyor belts, the rockets and so on. They produced 6,000 rockets that were fired in London. I'll talk about the propaganda later. Let's finish with the underground empire that the Germans built. This is a line of Henschel turbojet bombers on the assembly line, and we see here we have an even bigger room. It's 1 length, 2 lengths, 3 lengths, and something bigger than the fighter plane. We're talking about probably 60 feet of a giant tunnel underground that goes on forever. It's very hard to come to these photographs. Each one of them came from a separate book, a lot of them from English books that is impossible to find in this country. I have accumulated the biggest collection of German underground and bizarre weaponry photographs from dozens of books. People still keep bringing me additional books. All the present-day machinery, so the slide is not very good, it's quite dark. The present-day machinery builds tunnels that are round in shape. The German square tunneling technique indicated that they used a lot more advanced technology. Another boring machinery. We'll come again to this underground construction through the Rand Corporation Symposium in the early 50s about the giant underground alternative to evacuation empire that was about to start to be built. And we see the size of these machines. I mean, Rarely are they used for public transportation tunnels. Most of these are used for secret Illuminati underground works that we know nothing about. This is a 1, 2.5, this is a 5-story building diameter tunnel.
What company is that that's on the logo on the side?
This is an MIT photograph. This is an MIT built machine that automatically lays the concrete as it goes along the tunnel. You don't even have to do shoring
I think that's Robbins. The slide was backwards.
yeah, sorry. And finally, I found a photograph in a rare book on German munition construction. This is the Mittelwerk Nordwerk, or the Nordhausen underground complex, just 800 meters to the Dora concentration camps. The underground facilities were right under the concentration camps so that they wouldn't be bombed, or very close to them. And if we read carefully, we see a length of 1800 meters, which is about 1.3 miles. The width was, this is only 800 meters. It's probably a square 1.3 miles by 1.3 miles. And this is what they excavated in the beginning. This is 360 feet space between two galleries. Even if you explode dynamite in one, it wouldn't reach the other one. These are the big assembly lines that are 2 kilometers long. And then the subcomponent assembly lines were in the smaller galleries. And we are talking about such galleries going on forever. This is the thing that they were able to finish at the end of the war, or an initial stage of the construction, because later on they were about to do this whole area. Even now, these days in Germany, somebody told me a story that they were doing roadworks in the 70s, and they found a manhole, and somebody went down there and started laughing like crazy. Then they lowered some lights, and everybody else went down there. And what did they discover? A whole giant assembly room of Tiger tanks, never fired, brand new, shiny and polished. The guys didn't have the fuel to use them, so they just left them down there. The war ended. They probably dynamited the entrances, whatever, and discovered them by chance. What did they do? They poured concrete over the manhole, and the story was forgotten. Hollywood would pay a fortune for these tanks because they run and they can use them in so many movies. But they had underground tank factories, underground airplane factories, where a giant elevator would lift the airplane to the surface of an underground airfield, or they were calling them U-fields. The airplane would take off, retract the wheels, and then the gate would open, the airplane flies out, and the gate closes. And I finally found the photograph, the first photograph of such a U-field built in Germany. Why were we never told about these things? Very simply because they don't want to start us thinking along these lines, because the left Luciferian hand in Germany does the very same thing that the right Illuminati hand does in Russia or in the United States. They are busily building these underground castles and strongholds. They had underground munition factories, rocket factories, they had underground petrochemical refining plants, and even underground synthetic fuel plants. 300 underground projects were built, according to Renato Vesco in his book Intercept But Don't Shoot, a brilliant book on the German secret source of development. We'll come to that later on. 300 underground projects, some of them were of this size. How many of them were? Why didn't they talk about them? Very simple, because they've been very busily using them after the war, Americans in conjunction with the federal Germans, for their never-ending secret Illuminati projects. This is how I answered my question. Where the hell did the Germans build the saucers when Germany was bombed flat at the end of the war? They had plenty of space to build the saucers. Such an innocent-looking tunnel actually covers a giant gallery behind it. This is where the ready construction, the ready products would come out of it. Number two. Question number two. After the question number one, where the hell did the Germans build these devices? Number two was, Well,